The last 3 major Call of Duty games that we have gotten have been bad, and that's something that a lot of people have gotten together and agreed on because if you look at the past couple of Call of Duty games that we have gotten since 2023, I'm talking about Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 6, and Black Ops 7. A lot of people just weren't impressed by them. And of course, people didn't like those games for various different reasons. Like with Modern Warfare 3 from 2023, obviously it was a rushed money grab. No one cared about the campaign. Um, the missions felt like watered down version of Call of Duty Warzone from 2020. There was a lot of recycling going on in that game, and the game was plagued with technical issues to a point where people just they just like review bombed it, and they honestly I feel like, that game definitely hurt the credibility of the series, especially in relation to the 2020s decade, because I feel like this decade, for the most part, hasn't really been too good for Activision at all, or for the Call of Duty franchise for that matter. And the last time people kind of cared about Call of Duty would be like 2020, because I believe that was the year where Black Ops Cold War came out, and I think there was another game that came out as well that year. I can't remember off the. Oh yeah, Warzone that came out as well. People thought Warzone was all right, and I don't really hear hardly anyone talk about Vanguard so much because obviously Battlefield 2042 came out, and a lot of people thought that that game was actually pretty decent, even though it didn't sell too well. Don't get me wrong. I think Battlefield 2042 actually sold like 4 mil or more than 4 mil during its first week. But I don't know what the overall sales figures are, but I know for a fact that that game sold less than it should have. But you look at Battlefield 6, it hasn't even been half a year yet, and that game has did like 6 mil in terms of sales. And no, I'm sorry, 7 mil in terms of sales. And I don't think the sales figures for Black Ops 7 has even been released yet. And it's bad when, companies don't release the sales figures of their games. And the thing is, obviously, the companies are going to go on record and say, oh, yeah, the game was a massive success. It sold millions. It did good during its opening week. It's the top selling game in this country or that country or what have you. But there's no like sales figures by the millions that, Activision's really bragging about right now in relation to the Call of Duty franchise. And, it's crazy to think that Call of Duty's been around for over 2 decades because the first game came out back in 2003. But of course, um, a lot of people weren't paying too much attention to it at the time because the shooter genre was just starting to like become more and more popular. And during that time period, people were still into games like, Halo and the Unreal Tournament, which was really popular back then. And that's another thing. I mean, the Unreal Tournament, you don't even hear about it anymore. It just faded away into irrelevancy. And the Halo series went to hell a long time ago. A lot of people would go on record and tell you that after Halo 3, it slowly started going to hell. And and you look at like Call of Duty, like back in like the late 2000s, early teens, a lot of people go on record and tell you that's when the series shined the most. In fact, I feel like that time period was probably the peak period for the Call of Duty franchise because you look at the top games in the series, you ask anybody what the best games in the series were, they'll go on record and tell you Black Ops 2, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, the original Black Ops game from 2010, Modern Warfare 2 from 2009. A lot of people like the older stuff, like with Black Ops 2, you got amazing maps and you had like cool weapon balance. And then you have like, Black Ops, the campaign regarding JFK and everything that was going on. Like during that time period, and you had good weaponry and good solid maps and all that other stuff. And and I don't know, I feel like Black Ops 2 was probably like the beginning of well, not Black Ops 2. I would say Call of Duty Ghosts was probably the beginning of the end for the Call of Duty franchise in general. And don't get me wrong, Call of Duty Ghosts was a game um, that people pretty much gave a lot of flack to, but at the same time, it was way better than anything we've gotten within the past couple of years. And and I feel like with like the past couple of games that we got during the teens decade, it seems like I don't know. It seems like Activision has been having hits and misses with the Call of Duty franchise because I know a lot of people hated. They hated the Infinity Warfare, which came out in the mid-teens, and Advanced Warfare, and I don't know. I feel like the Call of Duty game from 2019 was something that was just overrated. Don't get me wrong, it was a massive commercial success, but it's overrated and it's something that a lot of people really don't talk about. People look back more fondly on some of the older games that came out like back in the late 2000s, early teens. And and I don't know, I just feel like at this point, the franchise is pretty much coasting off of its reputation, off of its name value, and I feel like the developers that we have right now can't really put out a new game that can really hook people's attention. And it's at a point now where I think their main competitor, Battlefield, is just has surpassed them for the most part, and it's to a point where a lot of people have just they have just gone on record and say that Battlefield franchise is probably like the number one shooter franchise right now. And it's crazy when like indie games start selling more than, you know, high budget AAA games. 'Cause I believe the Arc Raiders game that recently came out sold around 7 million when it was released not too long ago. And honestly, that's something that's really bad. And I don't know, um I don't know. I feel like with Activision, they've been losing a lot of money, and it's gotten to a point where they've had to do everything they can to try and, I guess, make up for what they lost. And I think one of the major things people didn't like about Call of Duty Black Ops 7, other than the fact that, the campaign sucked and, and like, I guess like the design and the was just like lacking in innovation and inspiration and all that stuff. There was a lot of like monetization attempts that you saw in this game. They tried to like monetize a lot of stuff, and obviously like any type of monetization in a video game is something that gets criticized by games because it gives the idea that developers can half-ass the game and then add features or mandatory features that would force players to pay for certain things. And honestly, I feel like that's something that has detracted from the overall quality of gaming, especially if you have to pay for like a DLC that's like $70 or a game that's like 69.99 or what have you. I feel like if you're gonna have a video game of that price tag, then the quality has to kind of match that. The lasting appeal that of that game has to match the price tag and all that other stuff. And it's not like how it used to be, And I honestly feel like with Black Ops 7. I don't feel like that should have been like the sequel to Black Ops 2 because I believe this game was supposed to be the or at least the campaign was supposed to be the sequel to Black Ops 2. This is something that he should have followed up on a long, long time ago. But yeah, I mean, I feel like just lack of, inspiration and innovation, recycling maps, and just not giving people what they want and basically being at odds with their fan base is something that's really hurt Activision in the long run. And honestly, they're feeling the effects of it. And like with this whole thing with Activision going on, the boycott going on against Nintendo and, people being pissed off at EA and all these other big companies that are AAA makers, a lot of people are under the impression that there's going to be some type of great collapse within the gaming industry because you look at the Game Awards and you look at like awards that were won. Um, Claire Obscure Expedition 33 won multiple awards, and it's a game that really didn't get a lot of mainstream attention or anything. It's an indie game for the most part. And and you look at Arc Raiders, like that's an indie game as well, and a lot of people saying that's the second best shooter game that we've seen this year, aside from Battlefield 6. So it's at a point where indie games are overshadowing AAA games and outperforming them in terms of quality, and it's having a detrimental effect on the gaming industry because a lot of people look at it like there's not really anything to look forward to. And you can make that case for 2026. The only thing people are really looking forward to is GTA 6. And if that game bombs, then Rockstar is going to be in a lot of debt. They're going to lose millions. They're going to cut a bunch of jobs and a bunch of people, and deservedly so if that game does bomb and people don't like it. But but yeah, I just feel like the Call of Duty series has seen a slow but subtle decline like during the teens decade. And I feel like after 2020, it's like people really start to see things really just go downhill with Call of Duty. And honestly, it's post COVID, it seemed like post COVID, a lot of stuff that was popular during the teens decade really started to decline and go downhill. And not only did Black Ops 7 end up, being a massive bomb or a massive flop or what have you. Um, it was um, it was revealed a couple of days ago that one of the co-founders or co-developers of the Call of Duty franchise, he had died in a Ferrari crash. His name was Vince Vella. He he was speeding like down the road, and I don't know what was going on. I mean, I saw the video. I don't know if he was trying to stunt or if he lost control, but the crash looked brutal. But I find it kind of funny how there was somebody there just recording the whole thing. So it really makes you wonder what really happened. But a lot of people consider that to be like really dark or a dark day in gaming. I feel like this year in general has been it's been mostly dark, like, for gaming, but I feel like 2025 has been, like, a turbulent year in general for a lot of people, just not myself, but just, in general. Um, but, despite everything that has happened with Call of Duty within the past couple of years, um, the IP is still worth, like, billions of dollars because I believe, like, in terms of revenue, like, the, franchise has surpassed 35 billion, and, and I don't know, I just feel like it's one of those things where the developers have gotten complacent. They feel that, hey, people will buy whatever half-assed product we put out there because, it's Call of Duty and, people eat these games up like hotcakes. And the thing is, oversaturation is something that has definitely it's damaged the reputation of Call of Duty, or it's made people not interested in the series because you get a new game every year and nothing really changes. And I believe that was something that was I mean, the only time things kind of changed was like when they introduced the whole battle royale in one of the Black Ops games. I believe it was Black Ops 3 or 4. They introduced battle royale, but then there was like no story mode. Um yeah, it's just like I feel like for the most part, um, Activision should just stick to doing remakes of older games, which is why they shouldn't have shut down that mod project last year or last summer or whatever. They should have shut that down because it's something that really turned a lot of people against them. And I feel like between their lapsed fan base and the people that they've pissed off and ran off, it's like it seemed like a lot of people aren't even willing to give like the new games a chance. But at the same time, the quality of the new games are not as good as the older games. I don't even know how that's possible, especially considering the fact that we have better technology and everything. But but yeah, I mean, I don't know, what's going on. I feel like maybe Activision should probably stay away from the Black Ops entries for a while because I don't know, I feel like to me I see parallels between like Call of Duty Black Ops and then like Capcom when they were doing like the Mega Man X series. Like the first couple of Mega Man X games were good, but by the time they got to like I wanna say after, like, Mega Man X5, it really started getting bad, and I think they got up to, like, X8, X7 or X8, and then when those games, did terrible, they stayed away from it for a very long time. I don't think they're ever gonna bring it back, but, but yeah, it doesn't mean that Activision can't still make Call of Duty games. I mean, I feel like they should have remade some of their old games a long time ago instead of just bringing back old maps and new games. But I digress. Um, yeah, I have no idea if Activision's just going to continue putting out new games every year, or if they're going to wise up and try new strategies to try and bring back lapsed fans and try to get people's attention. Um, I don't know. I just feel like nowadays big corporations and AAA video game makers, it's like they're reluctant to cater to fans and to give them what they want because like fan service is what made like a lot of the older games like popular. Once you take that away, it's like you lose that. They'll just go and they'll sign up with the competition, and we're seeing that right now with Battlefield. So yeah, it really makes me wonder what the future of the Call of Duty franchise looks like.